Hello and good day, ladies and gentlemen. Stage 2 of the Budapest Major is now available to secure our Pickems for. Now, I did make a video previously on my YouTube channel, which I'd highly recommend you check out if you are interested in a little bit more in-depth analysis and a summary of what happened in Stage 1. That's on my channel. I'll link that below first. I made that twofold. One, to just kind of get some of the brain rot out of my head because the level of Counter-Strike was exceptionally low in Stage 1. Gotta be honest, I'm going to shoot straight on that. But also just to kind of figure out what the hell I just witnessed myself. So if you want to go over there and watch it, some rants, some all over the place. My mind is just completely wrecked at this point. But yeah, go watch that if you want to. If not, no worries. A quick TLDW, or too long didn't watch, whatever, is I got 4 out of 10. So I'm going to hold that L. I think it was ridiculous. I think it was all over the place, incredibly hard to predict, as I expected, as I talked about in the lead up to my first video. But I'll hold the L. I didn't get the 5 I was looking for. Therefore, the Diamond Dream is now dead. Rest in peace. A moment of silence. But we can try and hit gold. And I was thinking of just memeing this, honestly. I was thinking of just RNGing this and just, you know, when you see those videos of like a dog going behind like team icons. I've seen this for the World Cup. I think there was an octopus at one point, if I remember correctly, for a World Cup for football. I thought of doing something like that, just basically, because it felt like that probably would have been more accurate, you know. But I decided, nah, we'll still try and nail this. We'll get as many as we can. We'll try and, you know, get gold. I think gold's going to be very hard to actually secure this time. Already most people's pick'ems are wrecked. If yours haven't been, comment below, let me know. And additionally, Anders and I are doing some co-streams of the major over on Kick. So, and we're doing a bit of casting, we're doing a bit of watch-alongs, we're interacting a lot with people in chat. It's been really cool so far. So if you do want to come hang out with us, I'll link the links in the description box below for our Kick streams, and you are very welcome to join us. However, enough waffling, let's get into the matchups, because we do have access and the information we need. Astralis NIP, 3D Max Fnatic, Passion UA FaZe, Paravision Tyloo, Na'Vi FlyQuest, Aurora M80, MIBR Imperial, and then finally Liquid against Bait. So I think this stage might be even harder than the last one to predict, straight up. The opening matchups are not helping at all, and I'll get into why in a few moments' time. But additionally, again, as I said in the opening stage, I think any of these teams can drop maps. I don't feel fully confident in any of them to secure a 3-0. So some gambles may be called upon. I went for teams in the first stage that came through in really good form, like Legacy, like Paravision in particular, for my 3-0s. That just didn't work. I also went for teams that I thought were coming into the major in poor form. That didn't work. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens here and what unfolds. But we're going to have a quick look at some of the opening matchups here, because it is really tough. First off, my instinct for 0-3 picks coming into this before I saw what the opening games were Imperial, Passion UA, maybe Tyloo was in the mix as well. Now, the problem with going for Imperial in particular, because I wasn't particularly impressed with them and their run across, I'll just show you real quick here. They got beat by FlyQuest after beating Rare Atom. Well, Rare Atom went 0-3. Fnatic, they got smashed by alongside FlyQuest. They beat the Huns, who realistically were on most people's radar as a 0-3 pick. And then they beat NRG, who are playing with Daps as a stand-in, who got 2-0. And by the way, NRG can hold their heads high. What they did was really cool. I was rooting for them straight up. And even within this best of 3, there were moments where it looked like maybe NRG could make this close. So they've beat Rare Atom 0-3, Huns, who probably should have been 0-3, and NRG, who are playing with a coach as their IGL. And they got smashed against FlyQuest and Fnatic. And not even double digits between the two of them. So as I look into that, I'm thinking, right, Imperial's an obvious choice. But here's the problem, man. MIBR are in weird shape themselves. And these guys have played a lot of times over this last year. But most notably, going back to like October, where they have just traded back and forth maps. And OTs in 2 of the wins which MIBR picked up on Train and Nuke, which are very possibly going to get played here. It's a case of not very one-sided and kind of a bit iffy. And you got to take into account as well, Imperial have already been at the major now. They've played 5 matches. You know, they've really run the gauntlet. They're warmed up. They're comfortable. They're in the right place. And MIBR are coming into this cold. So that could also be a potential banana peel for MIBR, even though I think they're a better team. But it's not as if they've been looking great themselves on the run-up. Sure, we haven't seen them for a month in the lead-up to this event. But that's concerning to me. However, I'm still going to go with Imperial. I do want to just make it clear I don't feel good about this pick, but I'm going to go with my gut instinct on this, and also the fact that Imperial, yeah, they made it through here, congratulations, but it was one of probably the easiest runs to make it through to this stage of the major out of any of the teams that made it here. And when they did fight off against like teams in form or teams that were solid, they got wrecked, and they got really badly wrecked. So I'm going to say Imperial for my first pick, but MIBR that's a dodgy opening matchup for a 0-3 for Imperial, just to make it very clear. Second team I was looking at was Passion UA, but there's a couple things about this. First off, the opening game is against FaZe, and I talked about this in my summary video, so I won't go into it too much. You can go over there and watch that in the link below if you are interested. But FaZe looked shambolic. FaZe barely squeaked by. At no point did they look particularly confident. At no point did I have faith in them. And my faith wasn't restored in that Fluxo game. Because, you know, Anders and I were there, we were discussing this, we were having conversations over on Kick about what would it take for FaZe to win us over and make us believe in them, right? Like, the Red Cannons' performance was so flat, and they should have got beaten by Red Cannons. I already discussed that before. And then they go to Fluxo, and they probably should have lost against Fluxo. Again, they got wrecked on one map. I think was it the first map they lost? No, second, sorry. They beat them 13-6 on Inferno, but then it's Nuke 13-7, and this was super one-sided. And then this could have easily gone to Fluxo, for all intents and purposes. Like, look at this. It took FaZe to win the last, 9-10 rounds in a row. Up until that point, Fluxo was straight up wrecking them. It was 10-4. And then FaZe went on this streak. Now, on the one hand, credit to FaZe. You upped your game, you upped your level, you found that character that Carrigan's been talking about. You reached the point that you should have reached. Fair enough. But you got to that point, and you also won the opening pistol round, and then only got 2 rifle rounds behind it on your T side. That's a potential problem. That's a real problem. And I was saying this to Anders, when they play against a team that's at like a upper caliber that isn't a Flux or a Red Canids, and they start the game like this, they're going to get found out real quick. Like, they're not going to be able to get away with that. However, I don't think Passion UA is that squad. I don't think that they're the team that's going to punish FaZe. Obviously, this is the X Complexity roster plus KFEM. If you're not in the know, Complexity dropped their roster, unfortunately. And this could be a close game. Like, I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think, though, here's the thing with FaZe. I can never fully write these guys off. Even in the games where it looked like they were dead and buried, they find that next level, and that is like championship form sort of teams. Not in the sense of how they're playing CS, don't get me wrong, but in the sense that they always have a way of grinding their way back in and taking games that they probably should lose. We also know, let's be honest, this is a team that has levels to it. It has gears, and we haven't seen these guys out of first or second gear. My concern is Brokey. I don't think he's playing well whatsoever. Jacob is having a few off games as well, and that's my problem. I don't have too many doubts when it comes to Frozen and Twists. They both kind of had their moments of carrying this team in the opening stage, but Brokey's struggling. Carrigan even talked about this, and credit to Banks for asking this question. He said, it looks like Brokey's struggling right now. What's going on about this? And Carrigan said, yep, he is having a struggle. We're trying to set him up. We're trying to basically allow him to flourish. So is it a possibility that they turn it around for stage 2? They definitely have the capabilities, right? Even if you've lost faith, we all know that FaZe has the capabilities of stepping it up considerably. So I'm not going to completely write them off, and I'm going to go for Passion UA as a 0-3, because I think FaZe should beat them, and I don't have much hope in terms of this Passion UA squad. To put it in perspective, a week ago they're losing to Foot, they're losing to Ecstatic, barely beating Nexus. They're not playing against any top flight opposition in sort of recent memory. The one of, like, you know, result that gives me faith is against the Mongols, but this is also the Mongols, obviously without Senzu. So put that into context. But I don't think the Passion UA are going to have the ability to stand their ground and fight against FaZe, and I don't think they're really going to recover afterwards. And there's not any easy games, right? So, like, even if you go down to that 0-1, even if they play Imperial, I'm not sure they beat Imperial at that point. So I'm going to go for those two as my 0-3 picks. For my 3 zeros, I'm going Na'Vi first, and I'm going to go Aurora. Now, I don't feel great about either of these picks. To be very clear, to be straightforward and honest with you, I don't feel great. However, I'm going to go with the teams that I think are in decent-ish form, but also have a very high level, and also have in my opinion, favorable matchups to kick things off. So Na'Vi against FlyQuest. Now, I don't want to take anything away from FlyQuest here. I think Regali and Vexite in particular were fantastic in Stage 1. Absolutely deserved their 3-0 status. They earned it. But the 3 teams they beat were Legacy, Imperial, and Fluxo. One of those teams has made it to the second stage, and that was Imperial, and I've already discussed how poor Imperial looked. Now, the nature and how they basically just wrecked all these 3 teams was impressive. I'm taking nothing away from FlyQuest in that regard. I'm just saying it's not the best run through to this stage, and Na'Vi is a few steps ahead. Now, you see a lot of red on this side, and it looks bad, and I can't really justify the loss against Heroic, because this is just before LNZ got dropped, basically. They're a team that's been struggling. There's rumors about Youngstar also being removed and maybe going on somewhere else. Astralis, I think, under Hooksy have been a significant step up. When Device is there and he's feeling it, he's still a fantastic player. And then Furia 6 weeks ago in this best-of-5 grand finals over at Thunderpick, back and forth, they, trading maps. The downside for me is they got hammered on Train 13-1. Like, that is a little bit of a damp squib. And all the maps were kind of one-sided as well. It was kind of a weird one. But they're trading back and forth with Furia, who right now are the best team in the world if you look at recent performances, if you look at the ratings. This team is just firing on all cylinders. So the fact that they went into a best-of-5 and traded maps back and forth, I actually view that as a good sign. Beforehand, beating the Mongols, beating Aurora, beating the Mongols again, beating Aurora again. And so these are teams that are here, like Aurora is here. If they play each other, Na'Vi maybe has the edge. So I think Na'Vi, yes, it's been a bit shaky. Yes, I'm still not sure about the combination of Alexi and Blade together as IGL and coach. I think individually they're both really good. Blade, you could argue, is one of the best coaches of all time. Alexi's had some amazing tenures and stints as IGLing in previous teams, of course, going back years now. But together, I'm still not entirely sold. I'm not entirely sold on Wonderful as an AWP. But I do think Makazi, I think Bit as well, the two of them are crazy good. And Ema has tournaments where he is actually the star player. Oftentimes isn't, but he has that ability to rise to the occasion. And I think this is a favourable matchup to Na'Vi. I think additionally, in terms of map pool, it's quite favourable to them because they're just going to ban Overpass. The rest of the maps they should have the advantage on for the most part. Maybe not Inferno, but they can get rid of that one as well. So I think Na'Vi take this and then they start running forward with it. On the same token, Aurora against M80. Now, I think M80's had a better trajectory to this point than FlyQuest did. They beat Bait, who looked great. They went through 3-1. They beat Paravision, who I think got better as the tournament went on. They were very shaky at the beginning. They had a bit of a rough run to the 1 and 2 bracket, but they beat Gamer Legion. And then they got victory against Legacy. That's 2 solid teams. 2 teams that most people would have had up in their 3-0-3-1 sort of category. So Paravision, I don't think, can be overlooked. And it's how they won, this methodical, determined, never say die attitude that Jane brings to the table. He's so calm. He's so relaxed under pressure. Like, whether he wins a clutch or whether he loses, you look at his face, you'll never be able to tell the difference. And I think that's incredible for those youngsters around him. And you're really starting to see Paravision step up to the plate. So the fact that M80 were able to beat them on Mirage 39, and then yes, they beat NRG, which isn't as impressive as a win in my opinion, but those first 2 wins are very impressive. But again, I do feel as if this should favor Aurora. However, the big caveat with Aurora is I never really know what to expect from these guys, and many times in the past in the major, they have massively underperformed. They've not shown up. They've not been at a level that you expect. But that typically happens in the playoffs. They typically have a big drop-off when it comes to playoffs. In the earlier stages, they normally perform pretty well. They're on a 4-match win streak, beating Bait, Astralis, Gamer Legion, and Legacy. Some notable wins against, like, Fnatic. Now, they did lose to the Mongols. They did lose to Furia as well. But I do feel as if this Aurora team should be good enough for M80. And again, M80, this is not uncharted territory for them. But I don't see them having as easier a game against Aurora as they did in their opening stage. Now, there is definitely a lot of doubts in my mind about this when I think of Aurora. I think they're definitely capable of dropping maps. But I'm going to have them to make it through, beat M80, and then get on a good track. Because if this goes the way I think it does, Aurora might play FaZe in that second matchup for the 2-0. If that does happen, I fancy Aurora to win that game, like, pretty easily. So if it does go that way, now obviously again, tons of potential banana peels and upsets and surprises and shocks. So take that with a pinch of salt, but that's where I'm going to go. I'm going to go with Na'Vi and Aurora to secure the 3-0s. In the 3-1 places, I'm going to go with NIP. I'm going to go with 3D Max to start off with. Now, I will say that 3D Max in particular have been pretty shambolic lately. They have been dropping quite a bit. Like, you look at their previous games, sure, it was 3 weeks ago, they lose to Linvision, and you think, well, how bad did Linvision look in Stage 1 of the Major? Lost to G2, lost to Astralis, lost to FlyQuest, lost to Bait. Before then, and win against, Saw, losing to Legacy. It's the nature and how they were losing that is a bit of a concern to me, but I still feel as if 3D Max coming through into the Major, now that they've had some time to prepare, some time to watch Stage 1, should be able to up their level significantly. I don't think Fnatic is an easy game for them whatsoever. They have played against each other like relatively recently, where 3D Max did get the W back at the CAC. Some pretty close maps, but also pretty strong, Inferno performance. I still think that they're going to make it through, but I honestly would not be surprised if it was more of a 3-2, for example. Now, it doesn't matter, obviously, for the Pickems, but I'll put them as 3-2. I don't think they'll make it through 3-1. I think NiP could make it through 3-1. Their opening game is against Astralis, and again, Astralis, I do actually rate pretty highly right now. I think under Hooxie's leadership, looking pretty good. They're losing against the top flight opposition, but they're also taking wins against some of the top flight opposition, like the Mongols and Na'Vi. But I was very impressed with NiP in the opening stage. The loss against NRG was odd, to say the least, but I was impressed with them. Kaspersky in particular was fantastic. You also saw Snappy having some big performances, but the elephant in the room is they didn't beat anyone great, did they? They just didn't beat anyone great. They got a loss against NRG. They beat Linvision, who were trash. They beat FaZe, who were all over the place, and Fluxo, who they really should be beating. So I am not completely sold on this NIP roster. That's why I'm not going to go for them at 3-0. They have a bit of a weaker map pool, as you can see, some obvious problems. But I feel like they're warming up at the right time. I just have faith in these guys. I think Kaspersky is such a fantastic talent that I'm going to go with them. But I actually probably will say 3-2, not 3-1. I'm going to go Astralis to make it through 3-1 here. They have looked very good to me lately. I think they're a team that cannot be trifled with. They probably do beat NIP in the opening fixture. Am I going to go Liquid? Am I going to go Liquid? Liquid Bait's a really tough one to kick things off. Like, it really is. I don't agree with this at all. I think this is like a 50-50 game, if I'm being real. Bait can definitely win this match. Oh, it's a tough one. I will go Liquid, though. I'll go Liquid as a 3-1 candidate team. I think they definitely have the capabilities. I mean, I'm always going to believe in a team that has Nertz and Elige as two of their core rifles, because, I mean, those guys are insane. Shui's leadership hasn't quite clicked just yet. Ultimate definitely has some question marks about him. I think he's often performs better with a rifle than the AWP, to be honest with you. But still a very strong team that should be performing. If we're looking purely on paper, Liquid should be winning this game, right? Like, realistically, they should be winning the opening game. They should be making it through as like a strong 3-1 candidate. Hell, I'd even understand if some people went 3-0 because they could also crash and burn. Last two teams. Man. Do you know what? I'm going to say FaZe to 3-2. Because they're playing Passion UA first, and additionally, I do still have faith, not in their performances right now, but what they could reach. If it's the biggest gamble pick, right? Like, I'm not going to sit here and feel confident about the fact that FaZe are going to go 3-2. This is a gamble pick for sure, 100%. Like, it really is. But ultimately, they have the capabilities of getting it done, and starting against Passion UA, I think, is good for them. Getting into that 1-0 bracket, getting confidence built up again, and who knows where they go from that point, but it is a proper gamble pick. And the last pick here, honestly, I think you could make an argument for any of these teams to make it through, straight up, and I think any of these teams could make it through. Yeah, Tyloo's maybe a little bit on the weaker side. They've been very up and down, a lot of bad performances as of late. FlyQuest looked great in the opening stage, so did M80. Bait are looking really good. Paravision are looking like they're a team that's just getting better as time goes on, just hanging on in there. It's a lot of lack of experience, though, on some of these players at this stage especially. You could say the same for Bait. Fnatic, in the meanwhile, they've looked good. I mean, you really could go back and forth in a lot of these teams, guys. This is super tough for me. But something is telling me to believe in Jame. And so I'm going to go Paravision to make it through. Something is telling me that Bait at this stage may get in their own heads a little bit. And they may have a bit of a capitulation. Plus, Paravision are playing their first game against Tyloo, I believe. And I think that's a very winnable game. Bait could easily be down at 0-1. Fnatic could easily be down at 0-1. I mean, I could change NIP out for Bait as well. But I'm not going to. I'm going to stick with my gut instinct on this one, and those are going to be my picks. Now, I don't feel great about this. I really don't. I think Aurora have map losses in them for sure, so do Na'Vi. You could easily make a case to switch over, like, maybe a FaZe to a 3-0 if you think that they're really going to just come alive and Aurora have a dropped map in them somewhere along the lines. There's every chance that, like, a FlyQuest makes a deep run here, and an M80 does, or any of these teams do. But I'm going to go with these, and I'm going to stick with them. For better or worse. What do you think? Comment in the section below. Let me know what your picks are. Is the Diamond Dream still alive for you? And hopefully we'll see you over on Kick for some of the co-streams. Have a great day. Peace.